welcome to episode 69, and I want to have a quick chat today about mics that you use on a drum kit. Now, what I'm talking about is typically the smaller mics that you're going to put, the purpose-built ones designed specifically for drums. Typically, we're looking at things like that. A Sennheiser E604. It's sort of the microphone you're going to see on a snare drum. The benefits: small, dynamic, tough. Stick it next to a snare drum. It doesn't get in the way too much. That's one of its main claims to fame. It's a decent sounding microphone in a small package, and at the moment they're about £112 here. So if you wanted to put this on a snare drum and your toms as well, a set of 4 is not exactly cheap. Well, my aim today is to show you a cheap Chinese equivalent, one that you could use without fear of embarrassment. So this is the Chinese D606. Now, it's dynamic. It's not metal. It's made out of that sort of really tough sort of ABS type plastic. And I sold hundreds of these over the years. I think I sold them for about 5 or 6 years, and they were really, really good sellers until the firm that I used to buy them from, which was a sort of wholesaler, decided to start selling to the public direct. And of course it just wiped me out completely. So that was the end of me selling these microphones. But they're so good that I kept a whole batch in my mic box. Now, if we look at the 606 and the Sennheiser 604 together, there are some obvious differences. So if I put them side by side, you can see that there's a size difference. If I turn them on, you can see that that's the difference in the end. But they're still small enough to put with security next door to a drummer's snare drum. If the drummers that you work with are like the ones that I work with, hitting the microphone is just one of those things. It happens. And over £100 for a microphone that you're going to thrash with a drumstick, or in this particular case, 30 quid. When I sold these, I didn't have a single one of them back. Not one. Nobody ever sent me a faulty microphone back. I'm totally sold on these, and the difference in audio from them is really quite small. Now, we're using the SM7B as usual here. So if I replace the SM7B with these microphones, this is the Sennheiser. So you're listening to my voice now on the Sennheiser. And I cheerfully admit that obviously bashing a drum would be good, but I don't have a drum kit here in the studio that I can actually put them on and give you a test. And even so, the click of a snare drum is not a particularly easy thing to compare with a different microphone hearing that click of the snare drum. Most of it is in the EQ and what you do afterwards. But these things are pretty good. If we swap now to the audio that's coming out of the Chinese one, the D606, the difference is remarkably small. I think a voice is a bit more easy to assess than actually listening to a drum too. There's a greater range of frequencies comes out of the human voice, and you can sort of draw conclusions far more simply. You know, is it tinnier? Is it treblier? Is it bassier? Is it boomy? All those sort of things. Now, I've actually had quite a lot of success with these ones as well when I've used them on other instruments. I've used them on guitar cabs. They actually work quite well. Both of these actually work really nicely on guitar cabs. And one of the other things that you can do with them is try them on other percussion. So they're great on Congers, on bongos, anything like that. And one of the good things is that they're both small enough to not actually look too bad. If you're looking at something like bongos, it's not exactly a huge instrument, is it? And then you put a whacking great big microphone on it, and it sort of overpowers it in photographs and on videos. But these things are actually pretty decent. And the best bit is they've actually got stand adapters built into them. As they come, you get 2 microphones with a permanent hinge mount on the bottom. So they're both, designed around the same sort of shape. So You have a small dynamic, you can stand mount it straight away. So when we attach it, we could screw the mic stand straight into the end of both of these and just use it like that. Now, alternatively, you can attach fixings so you can mount them on the drums. If we look at the Sennheiser first. Now, the Sennheiser's clamp is quite a sensible design, and you screw it on the bottom. It gives you a range of adjustments. So when you actually use that little serrated edge to clip it onto the drum rim, it's quite secure. So you'd mount it like that. It goes down onto the drum rim, and these things hold fairly securely. I mean, they still do get knocked off by drummers, of course. It's the springiness of the plastic that does the job here, and it just jams down on side. There's a couple of these little spikes, and they dig into the underneath of the rim, and they do hold it quite securely. There's a little notch at the back where you can slide the cable in if you want, and you get a little bit of adjustment in terms of sort of the angle of dangle, so you can actually move the microphone through an arc. And they're actually pretty decent things, and they do seem to fit most drum rims. The shells of the drums are all different diameters, different thicknesses, so making a successful adapter to clamp them on is a pretty sort of tricky thing, because the shape of those rims that go on the top varies in section. If we look at the Chinese version, the adapter is a slightly more chunky design, and it's got a knob. If we take this one, the Chinese microphone, put the adapter on that one, screw it in, it's pretty much the same design. The difference on this is that we're faced with an adjustable clamp that's got two rubber edges to it, so it's probably a bit more friendly to the drum, although, you know, I don't suppose that plastic clip on the Sennheiser does it any damage. But with this one, the actual metal of the rim goes in between those two rubber tipped jaws, and you screw it up, and you can actually put a bit of effort on this one. I found them to be pretty secure if the rim that goes round the drum has two parallel surfaces. Most seem to. So the parallel surfaces work. There's a few drum shells that use the rim with a slightly curved shape to it, and on them I've discovered it can actually slip off. So I think the design of the Sennheiser clip is actually a little bit more secure on those drum shells that don't have parallel surfaces to the rim. That sort of tightened down rim has a variety of cross sections, and as long as you've got one that's got parallel surfaces, it clamps pretty tightly, and it doesn't leave any marks because it's all rubber. Same sort of idea with the adjustment. You can adjust the angle of the tilt just by lifting it up and down. So you can bring the mic down to the skin, or you can lift it above if you want it to have a slightly sort of darker sort of sound. And on this one, it's got a little clip on the bottom that's supposed to sort of let you look after the microphone cable. Seems to work quite well. Through choice, I think I'd still stick them on a low boom stand and just poke them over the edge and hang them over like that. That does seem a bit more secure to me. But if you don't want to spend £120 maybe on one of these, you can buy a set of 4 of these for about the same price. And for once, it's actually a really nice product. If you can live with a slightly bigger size, I think one of these on a snare wouldn't do any harm at all. It's certainly not a dodgy product, certainly not unreliable, and it actually works pretty well. We use them, 4 of these with our band for years, with no problems whatsoever. So it's something that I can wholeheartedly recommend from my own personal use, miking up drums. These are fine. The Sennheisers are perfectly good. I mean, the Sennheisers are a lovely microphone. But the advantage, I mean, maybe there's a tiny advantage in the sound. Perhaps it makes it a little bit easy to EQ, but we never had any trouble with these. I think the main benefit to them is that slightly smaller size. But I think I could live with that. I certainly have been doing for years. So that's my take on these type clip-on mics for drums. I hope that's been useful. So see you on the next video. Look after yourselves. Take care.